You're listening to the PHP Roundtable, episode 84 for May 11th, 2022. I'm your host, Eric. It's been a while since I've released a roundtable since taking it over from Sammy. 8 months, I believe. It feels like it's been around 6 to 8 months. And a lot has transpired in that time in my personal life and just the world around me. Uh, Soon after taking over PHP Roundtable from Sammy, a lot of personal things came up where I was selling a house, buying a house. Um, John, my business partner John, and I took over the day-to-day operations of the PHP Architect magazine. I had a kid graduating from college, a kid moving out of the house. That just a lot has been going on for me over the last 6 months. And quite frankly, I haven't had the time to get back to Roundtable, but it's always been there, something I wanted to get to. Well, thanks to, let's just call it motivation, maybe, by some friends in the community. We've finally gotten, I've finally gotten to a point where I have some time to revisit Roundtable and start building that back up. So I'm very excited about that. Um, Along those same lines, we're thinking about taking a little bit of a different approach than what historically Roundtable has been, in the sense that kind of establishing a panel of people to be on with, uh, recording after recording, and then potentially bringing on people on top of that, other guests to kind of help round us out. The idea here is having people from internals and other people in the community so we can just kind of have some general discussions about what's happening in the PHP world, both from an internals perspective to kind of a userland perspective, and the challenges we're seeing and some of the things that are being addressed. With that said, let me introduce the official roundtable panel for now until one of them pisses me off. One's on the bubble already. I'll let you figure out who that is. First off, probably the reason why we're here today, and from PHP internals, Sara Golemon.
Hi, everybody. I don't think we want an intro. Hi.
Also with us is Joe Ferguson.
Hello.
And Ben.
And Ben. Thanks, Eric.
I am told to be happy to have you, Ben.
You should be.
That's what's bold in the show notes, right? It's like bold and really huge font.
I think I wrote those notes.
That felt like the introduction from Hamilton. Angelica, Eliza, and Ben.
All right, so let's talk about this. One of the things that went on during that 6 months was a campaign run for Release Manager 8.1, which I failed personally miserably at. But Ben, you became one of the release managers of 8.1. How's that going?
It's going well. I think when I remember to do the release on time, things work out really well.
Well, and you're the first that it's a little bit of a different approach, right? There are two release managers, or two. Are you guys calling them rookies? What do you call them?
That's right. So Patrick Alert and I are the rookies, and Joe Watkins is the veteran.
Cool. How's that working out as far as having somebody else learning with you? Do you feel it's been helpful, or?
It's actually, I mean, we've been able to split responsibilities, and Joe has, he started off, not you, Joe, not this Joe, but Crack Joe.
Joe Watkins.
Joe Watkins. He started off as, he kind of taught us what we needed to do, showed us the ropes, and then he kind of pulled back a bit. So he's kind of largely hands off. It's mainly me and Patrick that are doing all of the releases. And when we first started, Patrick and I got on Google Hangouts for the first several releases, and we just kind of did them together.
Interesting. And now we officially started voting for Release Manager 8.2 today. So that's fun.
I didn't vote for you again, Eric.
I voted for
you
Eric
last time, but I did not vote for you this time.
I voted for Eric last this time.
He did. That's what sparked this whole thing. Like, voting for me last was basically saying, I want to work with anybody else on this list but this guy.
You've just got, I think that's just playing to your strengths, and Ben just saying, I just can't learn with somebody like Eric also trying to learn at the same time, and he just
shines too bright.
However you need to word it.
You don't want the class clown in the class with you because he's being disruptive.
Yeah, I thought about that even today when we announced the vote, because there's always that. I mean, because we're doing what is it, single
transferable vote?
Yeah, single transferable vote. We've got 7 people for 2 seats, and we choose them in preference order, and so that last person is always going to be last for someone, and you can clearly see who chose them last. So right now there's someone in last, and I feel bad for him, but I never felt bad for Eric.
It's the difference between didn't come in first and definitely came in last.
Right. No, none of your votes transferred ever, not singly.
I feel bad because I honestly thought that was like a bogus name. Like, it just.
No, yeah, I saw you mention that.
I'm like, oh, that's a real person. Okay.
I hope he doesn't listen to this podcast. I hope they don't listen.
There wasn't as much.
For the record, did not vote them last. I want these young kids being encouraged to come in. So
I did like that.
When literally everyone on this podcast has died from a heart attack in 5 years.
You're not.
I was about to say that. I mean, if nothing else, like I spoke briefly with Eric Mann before he decided to participate, and my feelings behind it is like, if you've been in the community long enough and you're one of those people who want to contribute, just do it. Like, even if you don't get selected, you're kind of signaling out there of, hey, I'm available to do more. I want to do more. So I was terrified to do it, and I was even more terrified at the prospect that there's a chance I could win, and then that was quickly crushed. Fortunately, there was a little bit of a relief there, but it's just, I don't know.
I mean, was there ever a chance?
Yeah, I'm not a C developer yet. I keep telling myself I'm going to learn it, but I enjoyed the process. We had a lot of fun with it, and we continue to kind of play that narrative out because it's just kind of a fun thing. But even the process of just being, putting my name in the hat and seeing how everything works was a fun thing to do.
I'm going to say this again, and I think I literally said it on the last time we did a Roundtable podcast. It was that long ago. That this position isn't about capability. Like, even the vote is not about capability. It's about trust. Have you been in the community long enough that people think you aren't going to, start planting Trojans in the tar balls and things like that?
Interesting.
Or
Eric ideas. Next time we vote, he's gonna be like, I'm gonna get in there. This time they know me, and I'll put some Trojan horses in there.
If you want to lose subscribers to PHP Architect, that's how you're going to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
That's fascinating, though. That and it's terrifying to think Ben is the last line of defense.
But it is a trust position. It is a high trust position. So and that's why who we vote for really, really matters. And again, no disrespect to the person who's not doing so well in the standings right now, but a lot of folks don't know them as well as they know other folks. Like Eric Mann. I think Eric Mann has put himself into a position where he has plenty of banked trust.
And security is literally his middle name. It's Eric Security Man. So.
Yes, but that just means he knows how to hide the bodies better.
There wasn't as much getting to know people this round, I don't think. Like for the 8.1, maybe because I went and I was, paying attention to it than I have this one, but it seemed like there wasn't as much like, hey, this is who I am, this is what I want, this is, my motivation, that sort of thing. And I think that also plays to people who don't subscribe to internals, plays against them, the people who vote but don't necessarily read all of the things and subscribe on the mailing list, so they just don't know these names. So it doesn't surprise me, but it's always good to see new blood coming into internals. If however we get people started, whether that's being release managers or even getting people exposed to the process of how we do things, is critical domain knowledge that we need to pass on to the next generation.
Yep. I will say that the voting page does have a link for every single candidate that has at least some statement of, hi, this is who I am, this is why I want to get involved. Like there's some statement from every single candidate. Because not everybody has time to pay attention to internals.
I think last year you may have noticed that because we started the process in April, early April, I think. And so there was about a month before we even called for a vote. This time it was a much shorter lead time because the 8.1 release managers fell on their what's the word I'm looking for? I can't think.
Faces?
No, I was going to say like we fell on our responsibilities. We failed on our responsibilities.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying one of the 8.0 release managers that called the 8.1 selection did better, but did better.
You did start earlier.
And in this case, that's better.
That's all it takes.
So can I ask you guys a question? I know all three of you are fairly active on internals. I'm kind of a lurker. Like all I do, I read it like a news feed. How in the world do you keep up with all the threads going on in internals? Because it's just like throughout the day, and I understand, it's a global effort, right? We have people all around the world who are contributing, but like throughout the day, it's just this constant feed of emails. Do you all filter somehow, or what is your process of watching what's going on in internals?
I mean, for me, since nobody's starting, Gmail does a pretty good job of threading things together, so I can at least keep topics together. Some topics I don't care about. If somebody's like, I want to add stir contains to the standard library, I'm like, well, okay, fine, whatever. I don't hate it, but I don't love it. I just don't care. Go and do that. Have fun. So I decide the things that I care about. And beyond that, I also kind of lean on social media. People other than me are watching internals as well, and they say, hey, you seen this topic? You seen what so-and-so said about the thing? And I'll be like, oh, I better go and look at that. And that'll kind of help push me back into that. But yeah, like you said, there are quite a lot of messages. So it's not really possible to keep like completely up to date on every topic and, page in and remember everything everyone said about it. You just kind of have to do your best job as you go. That's all anyone can do is their best job.
My secret is drugs. Just lots of drugs to keep going through the mailing list. No, actually, very much like Sarah, I have some very strict Google filters set up to where the things I care about, I see. The things I don't care about, I don't see. But I can always go back into my mail and see them if I really do want to see like the water hose or the fire hose.
The water hose.
A fire hose is a water hose.
Some days it is a water hose. Some days it is a fire hose.
Very big water hose. I'm the same way.
That is covariant.
Yeah, I follow what I think. Well, I'll back up. I think what I was going to say a minute ago was just that as a release manager, you for at least from my standpoint,
we all know you're a release manager, Ben. God. How many times you want to say it?
As a release manager, from my standpoint, I don't feel. I guess I don't feel qualified to weigh in on every discussion. Some of them are things that, like Sarah said, don't necessarily interest me, but also I don't feel like I I have enough knowledge to have a well-formed opinion about a lot of the things. So I try to kind of stay out of those discussions. But the things that I do know more about, I'll jump in and discuss.
Cool.
Well, as a release manager, I want to say that you should never feel like your opinion won't be welcome. I think a lot of people, you in particular, I think a lot of people respect your opinion well enough that if you have a feeling on it, even if you don't understand the underlying concepts, it'll be well received. And I would say that's honestly true of everyone. If you think you have something to add to the conversation, then it's worth adding. Maybe not just a me too.
Maybe what I meant is I don't think I have much to add to the conversation.
If you got nothing to add, then shut your fucking mouth. Sorry. Bleep that out in post.
Stay in your lane.
Stay in your lane would have been better, yeah.
I will say, I've mentioned this several times on PHP Ugly, and I'll mention it here since we're talking a lot about it. It used to be back in the day, you had to actually subscribe to the internals mailing list, and you got the emails in your inbox, and it is a substantial amount of emails. Today, there is a site you can go to called externals.io. Is that what it's called? Mm-hmm. I should have looked that up before I mentioned it.
Yep, that's correct.
Externals.io, which publishes all the conversations of internals right in your browser. You can log in and you can check what you've read if you want, but you don't even have to log in. It's a great way to kind of casually pop on. And the cool thing about it is you can see what threads have a lot of conversations about it, what threads are having a lot of discussion. And it's nice. I actually use both. I have the regular stream that comes to my inbox, then I'll pop over to externals just to kind of get that threaded read of who's discussing what.
And beyond that, if reading is too much effort, and sometimes it is, Derek Rethins runs a podcast called the PHP Internals Podcast, where he talks about the goings on. So that'll be a filtered view naturally, but it's a great place to just see what's up.
That is a great podcast too. I love that podcast. Yeah. Yeah, very good. I'm trying to share. So if you're watching the video of this is the first time we've used this software. So I'm trying all the buttons out. It doesn't let me. Oh, it does let me share windows. Interesting. I'm trying to share a window. Let's see. Boom, boom, share. Does that share? Oh, I gotta share it. Boom. There you go. There you go. PHP or externals.io. Yeah. So kind of cool. Kind of there.
Oh, look, we can click into the release manager elections. Can do a live demo. Oh, well.
Oh, we can do that. Let's see. What is it? A release manager elections. Boom.
This is also a great way to go back and look at RFCs and comment on RFCs. I do that a lot when I'm finally make it to a voting page and the last hours that voting is available. I get to go back to externals and search through all the conversations, and it's a good reference point.
Yeah.
I should mention, this is actually not directly maintained by the PHP project. This is somebody externally, hence the name, who just said, you know what, I'm tired of trying to read the internals list through Gmail or whatever else. And I feel like we should give them credit.
It's at the bottom
it says
here.
At the bottom?
Yeah, right here. You can actually deploy your own version of it. This
nice.
is this.
Yeah, Matthew is
Matteo
also
Napoli.
the creator
All right.
of Bref.
That's right. I interviewed him about that. Yeah.
The PHP on AWS Lambda
nice.
tooling.
Nice guy. What is this? This is a new drop down for me. What is this? Products, Codebase. Oh, interesting. Yeah. GitHub amazes me how they are the developer's friend, I tell you. Let's talk about GitHub a little bit because internals has been moving to GitHub, hasn't it?
I mean, we just had another big move after a number of moves over the years. Yeah. There's very little left on our own infrastructure right now, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
The recent big move was moving the bug tracker, right? Yeah.
Oh, I was
thinking of the one before that, but yeah.
I was thinking of the documents, right? Is that what you were thinking of, Sarah?
The one between those, where we had the commit happen.
Source.
That one.
Off
of our own infrastructure. Yeah.
Right.
So the bug tracker, is that now issues on GitHub?
We're using GitHub issues for almost everything. There is something we're still using the PHP bug tracker for, I think, for security reports.
Right, because those are hidden. Yeah.
And maybe for some of the pickle extensions. I can't remember.
There's probably going to be a long tail attached to getting rid of the old bug tracker because there's also like, legacy bugs that maybe haven't been touched in a while that we're not going to move every single one into the new system. We're just going to keep them around and, maybe we work that pile down, but probably quite a lot of it is just going to be left there and recreated on GitHub over time.
Interesting. What's the organization? Is it just PHP?
Yes.
Oh yeah, there it is right there. Look at that. Share that again. Boop.
That's us.
PHP.
I wrote that. Yep.
Nice. Excellent. That is very cool. So something else that happened since the last recording of Roundtable is the PHP Foundation. Anybody here comfortable talking about where that is and how that's proceeding? And maybe a recap of what it is exactly?
PHP Foundation is an opportunity for donors, large and small, to help to support the development of PHP by funding the actual developers who work on them. It was sort of bootstrapped by JetBrains because they had been employing Nikita Popov, and he'd been working on PHP full time under their salary, but he wanted to betray us and leave us and abandon us to go work on Clang. So JetBrains said, all right, we're going to take, let's call it $100,000 a year, and we're going to donate that into a mechanism that we're going to help build so that not only basically Nikki's replacement, but maybe multiple more other people can get compensated for their work on PHP so that they can put more time into it and potentially do other project-related work that requires funding. The PHP project itself has always avoided direct contributions, direct funding, because there's tax implications, there's, quid pro quo sort of things where it's like, well, we've given you money, now we want to be, a big banner ad on your site or something. So we've just kind of avoided that problem. And rather than the PHP project changing sort of the policy on that, the PHP Foundation exists as a separate external entity. And so not only are we getting that $100,000 a year from JetBrains, but we've actually got a whole bunch of other contributors. And I don't know what the number is at right now, but we have a fairly decent budget. If you scroll down a bit, you'll see it.
So you get over 1,000 contributors. Budget is...
So yeah, projected for the year is 620, but we actually have committed balance of over 400,000.
The transparency of this is amazing to me.
Transparency was definitely a requirement to this entire project. Right now, we are still holding some of our board meetings privately because we are still figuring out what is shareable and what is not. Obviously, you don't want to share personal data about the contributors completely publicly because their privacy matters too. So we're still kind of figuring out where the edges of that picture look like, but we do hope to be able to not only have these meetings broadcast, like you can watch it on YouTube or something like that, but also have the notes from those meetings put into like GitHub markdowns and things like that so that people can keep track of what we're doing. But it's baby steps as we figure that out because there are lots of legalese to deal with.
And as somebody who's been very involved with internals for such a long time, do you feel like this is going to have an impact? Like, do you really think it's going to help developers who spend a lot of time on internals be able to make a little bit of a living, and more importantly, maybe bring some new blood in?
I think we're going to get there. So right now we have 6 people that we've already set up contracts with. I'm pretty sure we've posted their names. I'm not 100% sure, so I'm not going to name them.
If you go to the PHP, if you go to the Open Collective, there are some updates that have the public information in them.
Okay, well, check Open Collective. I'm not going to say just because I don't want to do anything that I haven't made sure I'm allowed to say yet. But we have a number of people that we are at least partially funding. None of these people are getting rich off of it. It is just sort of like helping them move into positions where maybe they can take less hours at their job, or maybe even leave their job a little bit earlier so that they can put a little bit more attention into maintaining PHP and the things that go into it. We are going to expand that number as the project develops and as we see what happens. Right now, the people we've selected are people who are already contributing to PHP, people who have a proven track record. And I think that's perfectly fair. For the record, I'm not one of them. Nobody on the board is receiving anything. But I think we would like to move this into a direction where we can get essentially brand new contributors in the long term as a way to entice them in. Money shouldn't be the only reason you work on open source, but it shouldn't be a hindrance to you working on open source is sort of the end goal of it.
Cool. Something else I'd like to move on to is with everything that's going on in the world, there's been a lot around Twitter and in the direction Twitter's heading, and something that's kind of been revealed as new to a lot of people, but some of us have known about for a long time, is that the PHP community has a Mastodon instance, which is I don't know if you call it a Twitter clone or just another social media stream.
So much better than Twitter.
And somebody had said it is what Twitter used to be, which is like all the like real geeks are on Mastodon now and are able to have our geeky conversations without getting interrupted with, TikTok posts from the latest celebrity or something like that. The one I think a lot of the PHP community has gravitated to is phpc.social, and I believe you guys have some hands on that, don't you?
Well, as a release manager,
as a phpc.social release manager, as well as a php.net 8.2 release manager, or 8.1, sorry.
Yeah, a few years back, I was actually looking at that the other day, and I set that instance up in 2018. So it's been 4 years now, almost 5 years since I set it up. And I think I set it up when it was just one of those times that there was a mass exodus from Twitter, or quote unquote exodus, when everyone said they were leaving and then a lot of people went back. It kind of came across my radar. I was looking into a bunch of things for decentralization of communities and things like IRC and those kind of things. I've always like missed those things in the web, and now everything is so centralized. So I started looking into this, and Mastodon is a nice, I think, well-written, well-designed micro-blogging platform, but it is just one part of what's called the Fediverse for federated universe or federated multiverse. It's called the Fediverse. It's anything that implements the ActivityPub protocol, which is from the W3C, can be considered part of the Fediverse. So you implement this protocol, and clients and servers are able to federate data between them and among themselves. And so this universe is much bigger than any one instance that you're on. And you can join one instance and then follow people and see their updates on many, many other instances just through that federation. Or you can create different accounts on different instances for whatever you want. A good example of that is I'm I was looking at there's another Fediverse application called Bookworm, which is not based on Mastodon. It's its own software. And that's Bookworm with WYRM. And it also federates with all the other servers, even though it's written in a different programming language. And it also has other functionality built on top of it. So it doesn't just do like tweets or microblog posts. It also lets you check into books that you're reading. So it's kind of like a Goodreads clone. And so I decided to create an account on that, even though I don't have to have one on it to follow people on it, because I want, to transfer all of my book collection from Goodreads onto that instance. So I'll have an account there. There's also like an Instagram clone called PixelFed, which is actually written in Laravel. And so it's a full Laravel PHP application that integrates with ActivityPub or implements ActivityPub. So it federates with the entire network as well. So Mastodon is just one small component of that. It just happens to be, I said small, it happens to be probably the largest user base, largest install base. It's kind of easy to get set up, and it's what's popular right now.
And it's written in Ruby?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay.
One of the interesting things about the way this ActivityPub universe kind of works, and Mastodon in particular, is that the question of free speech and whether or not somebody deserves to be blocked or deplatformed or anything like that is actually dealt with on a instance by instance basis. So if somebody came to phpc.social and just started saying like Python is the superior language and PHP is inferior, and I'm making this a thin rap for racism, but you know what I mean. The administrator of PHPC Social could say, you know what, I'm going to block that account, but you know what, it looks like the instance that they're coming from, Python.social, is also doing a lot of this kind of stuff in very hurtful ways that are deliberately attacking people on my instance. I'm going to block that entire instance and extrapolate that out to other ways that people might want to block particular instance, Truth Social, from the entire network, so that nobody with accounts on that system can cause noise and annoyances.
And what's really interesting about that is that so you've got your community on your instance, and in Mastodon, each instance has its own local feed, and you can see the federated timeline. And when you are, but on a larger macro scale, a lot of the admins kind of know each other a little bit just from interacting on the platform and or on across the Fediverse. And when they talk together, and so I'm sorry, I got like a phone call at the same time I'm trying to go through this, so it's like
I can tell what you're trying to say while you pay attention to the phone call.
Yes. So we're able to, like, when you block an instance, a lot of times that'll get propagated, not like through technology, but just through socializing that, hey, this is an instance to look out for. You might want to block it. And so sometimes just through the nature of like a social kind of process, we'll end up like separating and segmenting instances away from the larger kind of Fediverse.
There's an argument that could be making bubbles, but I think at the end of the day, what it does allow is for everybody to have all of their own wonderful little opinions without having to, expose everyone else to them.
And we could do that just out of curiosity. The let's say the Python one, it's like the people aren't alerted that they're, or are they alerted that
the instance admin, I think, ends up finding out because there's like a failure ping back that happens.
Oh, interesting.
But they might be like, well, I don't care because that's a PHP instance and we're superior to them, so their loss.
Yeah, Joe.
I did want to highlight something else Ben was talking about, and that is that local timeline. When you were talking about how like Mastodon feels like Twitter did, 10 years ago or whatever, that is a bunch of geeks talking about stuff. That is kind of specific to your instance, though. Like one of my accounts is on Mastodon technology, and everybody's talking tech. They're talking about the mechanics of tech, the politics of tech, but tech essentially is the main subject area. So even if I don't follow somebody on that instance, I still see this local timeline of what everybody's posting about. I'm like, oh, that looks like an interesting person to follow. That looks like an interesting person to follow. Whereas on another instance, let's say mastodon.social, you've got somebody who's talking about maybe pop culture stuff and what is the latest Ariana Grande Frappuccino going on and why should I care about it? I don't have to look at that local timeline because that local timeline doesn't matter to me. No disrespect to Mastodon Social. It's a lovely instance. But when I look at my PHP Social account, I know people are more likely to be talking about PHP there. So you get that sort of like topic area focused thing helps out.
The other thing this has done is kind of ushered in a new wave of people into Mastodon. Like every time there's this quote unquote exodus, it's nice to see all these new faces show up and following me on PHP Social, because I'm one of the several people who have tried to quit Twitter and just come back because that's where the people are. But now it's like the discovery of people and new ideas and stuff is so condensed, and I don't have to filter through so much crap to get to that. Is one of the big things for me. Is its new perspective, its new views. Of course, it's a completely different platform, and then you can pick and choose. So it's much more heavily content moderated than a Twitter would be, because you are so isolated while you're still connected to so many. So I think it is a much better option for somebody who was worried at all about privacy or wanting to lock down their data, and especially people who want to own their data and be able to go and trust that they can delete their data from an instance and maybe don't trust a giant corporation.
The issue of privacy brings up one about feature sets. Mastodon, you can set each individual post to different privacy levels as well. Like you can actually control that. There's also, I think, much better accessibility features. You can add alt text to every single image and set the cropping manually. Like it's actually a better platform in a whole lot of ways.
They did the alt text before.
Oh, did they
Twitter.
finally?
Okay. Well, I was just going to say Twitter now has that, but Mastodon's been doing the alt text on images, or allowing you to do alt text since long before Twitter. And in fact, an interesting point about the accessibility nature there is that culturally, people on Mastodon instances tend to be more focused on being accessible and also conscious of other people's possibly triggers, because there's also a content warning functionality that allows you to say, I'm going to hide this behind a content warning flag, and my content warning will tell what it's about. Like, this is about Python. And so those who see Python there and don't want to read the rest of the message can just ignore it.
Because it doesn't necessarily have to be triggering things. Like sometimes it's just, I've heard enough about U.S. politics today. I don't want to hear more about U.S. politics.
People will do jokes with that way too. They'll hide the joke behind the content warning
or spoiler warnings.
That's
spoiler.
Yeah. I just saw the new Doctor Strange movie, and I'm like, spoilery.
I gotta watch that. Okay, so since we're talking social, I know, at least I know Joe and Ben are pretty big in the user group community. I'm not so sure your position with that, Sarah. With the world kind of moving forward in a post-COVID state, how do you guys feel about user groups and in-person meetups again? Personally, here in San Diego, or I'm actually not in San Diego anymore, but here in Southern California, our San Diego group hasn't physically gotten together yet, but I think we're really close to doing it. How about you guys, or anybody else on the panel? How do you feel about user groups? How do you feel about in-person meetups again? Did you miss them? Do you think virtual is just as good?
So this one's not going to be about user groups, but I did just go back to my work's headquarters in New York like 2 weeks ago, and definitely valuable. I got to, like, it was the first time in 2 years. Definitely valuable. I got to meet people who had joined the team have been there for a year and a half or more, and I've never physically met them. So highly valuable thing, good use of hallway track time, because hallway track exists at work too. But holy God, nobody wore a mask anywhere. Like, it's exaggerated, like maybe 3% wore a mask. But like, I'm going through New York, and you know how crowded New York is. And like, I think the country just decided it was done.
Yeah.
We're done with COVID. So we're just going to go. I think I came out of that okay. I didn't catch anything. My 3 immunization shots are seeming to do the job. And I'm going to be in Nebraska in a couple of weeks for family matters. And I'm hopeful it's still going to be as good. So I think when the conferences start back up and the user groups start back up, I am all set for going out and getting some FaceTime with people, because I really, really miss that. I did actually go to Lone Star last year.
Did
was a
you?
really good experience. But everybody was masked at Lone Star because it was still like October 21.
Yeah.
So I think we weren't quite sure we were past the hump yet.
I tell you, you said it. The in-person, meeting people in person. I mean, I just miss that, especially with conferences. I just miss there are groups of people that the only time I hang out with them in person is once a year at a particular conference, and I look forward to that time. So yeah,
dude, Ben came on here, and I'm like, holy God, you've got a lot of gray in your beard. I didn't even know, dude.
It's like all
that's how
gray
long
now.
it's been.
And how about my temples? I can't.
How about you two? Any thoughts of in-person meetups again? Or user groups?
In Memphis, we're just kind of hibernating. We definitely saw a great decline. I mean, even before COVID, Memphis has always been kind of. We have our big moments for the PHP user group, and sometimes it goes quiet for a really long time, and we're just in one of those quiet spells, just aligned with COVID for us. Pretty much perfectly. So the handful of the people who I stay in touch with through the local user group are, still doing still doing everything, trying to get together. We got together a couple of weeks ago at a brew fest or a brewery to do a in-person kind of hangout night that was sponsored by a recruiter. So we got to kind of go hang out with people. It was in an outdoor arena, so our outdoor brewery area. So I felt pretty safe doing that. I'm also going out once a week and hanging out at my local hackerspace just down the street. And I am in there. We have pretty good ventilation. We keep a garage door up, so a lot of people don't wear masks. It's kind of a shop setting, so we don't really wear masks there. And there's several of us that spend a few hours every Friday night there. So it's been great to get back to those in-person meetings, because trying to meet and talk about things about a hackerspace and trying to work on physical projects is really hard to do over Zoom. So it's one of those things that we started coming back and doing our in-person stuff really soon. Whereas with the PHP user group, I'm very much like waiting to see what's going to happen. I want to see some other user groups come back, and I want to see what the venues do. I want to see what the people's reaction is, and I want to use that information for kind of my transitioning to that for my group, and be able to leverage that information and make sure people are going to be comfortable first of all.
For the people not watching the video, Joe's cat has decided he's talked enough. It's time to get some attention. All you see is this little tail, like a little shark fin, walk across the screen.
It's funny too. Like some of the your camera setting that's I can't talk. Gosh, I'll just
his
skip
virtual
over
background overlay.
Yes, his background overlay doesn't know what to do about the cat a little bit.
Right.
So it's all right. I'm sorry. My brain sometimes just goes way out. Our user group hasn't met since before COVID. And I honestly haven't kept in touch with a lot of the people, other user group leaders in Nashville. Although officially, we have an organization that kind of helps the user groups called TechFed Nashville. The technology.
And for the record, just if I can interrupt, Nashville to me was one of the, I don't know if this is for a fact, but was one of the biggest user groups I remember when I started in PHP. Like everybody talked about Nashville PHP, and it seemed like it was like the user group that everybody at the time, I think it was Nashville and Atlanta had a big user group as well that everyone talked about. And, that was like the bar that all other PHP user groups try to live up to.
Oh, sorry, Joe, go ahead.
Sorry, I said I stole everything I know from those groups and used them for my own, as every user group leader should.
Yeah. So Southeast PHP built out of Nashville user group, right?
That's right. So Eric, that I started the Atlanta group too, right?
Of course you did. Why wouldn't you have? Makes complete sense now. My whole life is a lie.
This was not planned. Eric's like going on about the Nashville and the Atlanta user groups, and like,
don't worry, he didn't start Memphis PHP. That was Jeremy.
Actually, he started San Diego though.
Yes, I started San Diego PHP. No, yeah, our user group hasn't been able to meet, and we did have a few really good meetings last year that were virtual, but we've just kind of we're in a slump right now, I guess. We just kind of got like, I got busy, and I also got tired of trying to find a speaker for virtual stuff each month.
So hard.
The virtual for me was really hard after a week of work, like when they were towards the end of the week, and I already had Zoom fatigue from just the day job, and then just maybe hanging out with people on Discord or something, gaming after hours or something. By the time like a social hour or something rolls around, or a user group meeting, it's like, if it's going to be online, it's going to be like, no, I've got to get out of my chair. I've got to go do something else. So that's a big thing that's kept me away from a lot of those groups.
As somebody who's spoken at a few virtual events, I got to say, they're not my favorite because it's all of the work and none of the payoff.
Like,
exactly.
You have no audience feedback at all. It's like
no audience feedback, no hallway track.
You need cats, Ramsey.
It's just all the work.
I have dogs, and they just want to be loved on. They don't really care what you're saying.
They care what you're holding.
But I have been encouraging our users to attend Merge PHP, which is a virtual kind of combination of several user groups that did that because of the same problem we just mentioned. Like, it was, becoming a pain to find a virtual speaker each month. So there's 6 or 7 groups that are part of Merge PHP. But to your other question about looking forward to meetings, we are starting this month. We're going to try out our lunch meetings again. We used to do like a lunch each month as well. It's just casual, informal. And then maybe next month we'll see. I'm going to ask around some of the other groups and just kind of test the waters and see how people are feeling about in-person meetings. I think
there's going to be. We're anticipating a little bit of a logistics issue where companies just aren't going to be interested, in having a bunch of strangers in their space anymore. I think we actually have a line on a small meetup place that we're probably going to try to take advantage of, but in general, I don't know. I think user groups are going to run into that issue a lot of, hey, we don't want the liability right now. It's just,
I hadn't thought about that. That's a good point.
Maybe that takes your user groups back to the. Maybe that takes your user group back to those groups, back to the coffee shops or the backroom coffee shops where they started, or pizza parlors.
Pizza parlors, yeah.
Just take over Denny's somewhere. It's fine.
Sure. I mean, we were lucky enough to have a recruiter's office that we could just go camp out at in after hours in their offices, and it was all furnished and it was great. But if you don't have those kind of good recruiter connections, it can be really hard. We're also in our larger tech community. We're going to start doing our co-working day. We did a co-working day once a month. For several years leading up to COVID. And it was always kind of either at the makerspace or we went to one of the other co-working facilities in town, and one of the co-working facilities just got renovated here locally, and a big company moved in. So now that they're trying to show the space off, we're going to do that and host it down there. So it's kind of one of those promotional things where the community can kind of come back and get together, but also go see some of these other companies' workspace and that sort of thing, just to kind of get out and socialize with people who you may not work with normally every day, just because there is such a large conglomerate of people who do work remotely in Memphis now. Even before the pandemic, there were dozens of us at least.
Oh, Eric, you mentioned liability, and a lot of user groups, they don't have any liability insurance or anything like that. So when they meet at an office, they're kind of relying on that company's liability insurance. Nashville solved that a few years back by starting an organization called Tech Fed Nashville. That's what I was mentioning earlier. But when COVID hit, that organization, it's a nonprofit organization, it canceled its liability insurance because it didn't need to pay for something during that time, and it still has yet to renew it or to start it back up. So that's another thing we've been wondering about, like, how do we handle liability insurance? So for the lunches, they're informal, and really it's just kind of like you show up at a restaurant and like you're there as an individual at the restaurant, really. But yeah, with meeting in a company space or somewhere like that, we hadn't thought about that. That has been a question, and since we don't have the liability insurance, it is interesting to wonder if companies want to have that liability.
Right.
The one thing in Tennessee is Tennessee's an at-will, at-risk state, which means you assume all risk wherever you go on yourself.
At risk.
At risk, yes. Sorry. So it's
no. I was just saying that's a funny statement that you're at risk.
So when we started the hackerspace, that was a big thing because the hackerspace has to have a certain level of insurance as well because of that risk, and we have tools and stuff to cut your arms off. It's great, and we've got to be able to have that kind of insurance as well in case something like that happens. But and we have people sign waivers as part of our insurance thing. We had to get really serious about it, but that's what happens when you're a super small group of people and you don't have the power of a nonprofit behind you, which we do, and we have access to that here in Memphis. We've just been super lazy and not gone out and done that insurance because we haven't needed it for 3 years. So we'll bide our time and just kind of see what happens. But yeah, the power of a local nonprofit backing the user groups is hugely important. If you can get that, if you can have a good relationship with a nonprofit that can do that for you, it's incredible.
Cool. All right. So I think I've used enough of your time today. I do want to kind of wrap this up. If you're listening to this, we are iterating this process, and ideally this will become a live stream again. We're kind of working through some new workflows and some new tools we're going to use, but eventually we'll start streaming live. And as a companion to that, something we've had a lot of success with the PHP Ugly podcast is a Discord channel. So we have spun up a PHP Roundtable Discord. I will include it in the show notes of this show if you're interested. And when we do go live, if you want to give us some ideas or questions for the panel, feel free to put them in there. We're always open to questions on Twitter. If there's things you want us to address, if there are ideas of people you want us to add to the panel, feel free to reach out to us. I mean, this is meant to be for the community, just kind of a brain trust of people just talking about stuff going on. So I want to thank everybody for being patient with me. Some more patient than others, Sarah. And getting this going again and working through some of these tools and these workflows. But I'm looking forward to this. What do you guys think? Like once a month, once a week? What do you want to do?
I would love to see this once a month personally.
Yeah. Once a month? All right.
Where's the table?
And like I said,
I was told there would be a table.
As we have ideas, we'll see. We'll let this kind of happen organically. Maybe we'll settle on a day and time so that people can kind of look forward to it moving forward. But right now, we're kind of getting a feel for everybody's schedule. I mean, we all are very busy people. God's sakes, Ben's release manager, so he's busy. We all have
as
a lot
release
going on.
manager
doing release manager business.
Dude, am I chopped liver over here? I have an active release too.
You didn't start the Atlanta PHP or Nashville PHP.
Or PHPC. I mean,
wow.
Ben just likes to remind everybody.
Let's go count commits in PHP source.
Everyone's gonna hate me after this. They're gonna think I'm so egotistical.
Hey, that's been my motivation for the past 6 months, Ben, is trying to get everybody to hate you. It's not easy. God damn it. I actually started a talk for when users group startup about why everybody should hate you. And
that's great.
Just so you know. I'll share it with you when I get it more complete. Also, along those same lines, a shameless plug for our PHP Architect. If you're not a subscriber, please subscribe. But more importantly, if you want to contribute, we love contributions. Joe is a feature contributor, so every month Joe has a column. I have tried to recruit others, but we also have you're a columnist. We have a feature contributor every month, which is just like a rotating band of people who have an article they'd like to contribute. And if you've ever done a conference talk, if you've ever done a user group talk, chances are you have a article you can contribute. We pay for it, which is always a plus, but more importantly, it's a great way to get continual education out to the PHP community, which is kind of one of our goals. So just want to put that out there. Besides that, I think that will wrap it up for PHP Roundtable 84, was it? I forgot the number.
85.
85? Yeah, we'll go with 84. It's 84.
So are you shipping us roundtables, or is this a provide your own roundtable thing? Because I only brought square tables with me. It's just what I had on short notice.
Well, you need a wedge table. Because
I have a wedge table, like a little corner table desk. That'll work.
Do we all at least have roundtable elephants? Huh?
Oh, you want to talk about the availability of roundtable elephants? Let's talk about that. There are only 8 left of the original.
Only 8 left.
That you are only able to get from one source. And feel free to go. And there are 8. I put my hands on 8.
What is the source, Joe?
The source is osmhhelp.org. Awesome. We used to be Osme Help. If you go to the old URL, it should work. The store we have is still using the old Osme name, but we have 8 more of those elephants if you would like one. I just sent 2 out to Europe today, so there are a few more of the OG run. There may not ever be any more of these. There might be more of these, but these are the first. So if you want to tout that you are a first generation owner as much as Ramsey touts that he is a release manager, you've got to act quickly.
Well, Ramsey designed these, apparently.
Right. Yeah.
He designed these, and
he inspired
the original one.
As the namesake of those elephants.
That's right.
Oh, what is the name of the elephants?
I forget.
The name of the elephant is Puita.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Okay.
Yeah. We actually just
that Ramsey can't take away from me is I was one of the first humans in the entire universe to see the proof of concept of this elephant as well. I think Sarah the first, and then Chris Tankers.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I met up with Sammy in New York somewhere, and we're at a bar, and he's just like, "Hey, come here." And
he like, "You want to do some drugs?"
Pulling it out from under his
there's
jacket.
his little nose sticking out.
Most sketchy thing in the world, but that was incredible.
Very cool.
We might have to get another run of these going, but yeah, these are the OGs, and it's a little different than my other elephants. It's got a little fluff to it, a little fur. So
yeah.
All right, cool. All right, thanks everybody for hanging out with us.
Don't forget to smash that like and subscribe.
Yes. Look at you. You're like a streamer.
Grab your nearest PHP Architect elephant and just smash right into that button.